Hi, Stargazing Scotty here. Um, I do a lot of camping and dog videos and stuff. But I don't think I ever told any of you why I'm the way I am, why I have my disability, how it came to be, and what happened through everything. I was living in an apartment with my son. It was only one bedroom, so I slept in the living room. I worked at Metro, RTA, bus company. I was a bus driver. And then I got moved up into another position after 3 years of driving bus. And it was my son's first day of first grade. It was his orientation, and it was a happy, beautiful day. And, it was August 24th, 2001. Um, we went to the orientation, and we were going to meet my mother and sister at a restaurant called Jasper's. And it was a 2-lane road, 25 miles per hour. Um, with a lot of streets going off of it and stuff. It was very windy. And we were doing 25, and there was like 4 people behind us, and there was a big white van waiting on me to turn left onto a street. And I was doing 25 with my son in the car on the way to the restaurant. The way the street wound was I couldn't really see what was coming behind the van because the street kind of turned that way, so I just saw him waiting on me. Out from behind the van, a woman was doing 75 miles per hour. They could tell from her skid marks. Hit my son and I head on and continued on and hit the 3 other cars behind me. My son was in the seatbelt, and he had internal bleeding. And I went up. I was in a little tiny Toyota, like a 1981 something. It was a teeny tiny little car, and she was in a Taurus, Ford Taurus. And my head, the way this our seatbelts never worked right, and that I did have it on, but it didn't matter. My head went up and dented the roof of the car, shattered my teeth. And bleeding in my brain, but it didn't show up right away when the woman behind me is permanently paralyzed that she hit after us. I remember I couldn't think right. Nothing felt right. I don't remember a lot. I guess I called my boss from Metro. I was very close to him. He got me that job. And he sent out a supervisor, Kenny, to take me to the hospital because I had told the paramedics that I was fine and just to help my son, I guess. And Kenny took me to the hospital, and fortunately, he also called my mom. And my mom went with Billy to another hospital, children's. Um, that's the last thing I really remember for about 3 or 4 months. I remember when I came to, I was living with somebody they told me was my boyfriend. I didn't know him. I didn't know my mother. I didn't know my son. I didn't know my father. I didn't know my family. I couldn't drive because something about the flashing cars upset my brain. I couldn't see right. I was having seizures. One pupil was dilated, the other one wasn't. Um, I couldn't hold a spoon. I couldn't walk very well. I couldn't see. They told me I didn't hurt any of my eyes. I hurt the part of my brain that my eyes see with. There were constant migraines and constant seizures, and I couldn't tell anybody about it because I couldn't speak very well. And Metro RTA at the time, really nobody, there was no insurance coverage for traumatic brain injury. So all the treatment I had, the bills started piling up and coming in. My mom gave me her extra car, but I wasn't able to drive that for a long time. About a year later, I came to and realized that I'd been sitting and basically drooling for about a year. But when I became aware of what was going on around me, I still didn't know my family, and I didn't have feelings. I didn't have like emotions like people should. I couldn't feel anything. I couldn't cry. I couldn't laugh. In my memories, I looked through pictures and I tried to find who I was in my life, and I couldn't find me. But I could feel it missing. I could feel my life missing. I knew I lost something. I just couldn't find it. I didn't know what it was. And the Human Resources Department told me that because brain injury wasn't covered and it wasn't considered a thing in 2001, that I didn't have any services through the ADA, or I shouldn't have, because they didn't have to keep me or treat me like I was disabled because I didn't have an injury that you could see. I wasn't in a wheelchair. I didn't break my arm. It was just because I couldn't speak right and was having severe seizures and didn't know who anybody was. That wasn't a disability. So they asked me to quit because they didn't have to make an accommodation for me because they didn't see me as disabled in 2001. So they ended up firing me, and I never fought back because I didn't understand. I trusted them. I thought they were my friends, and at the time, I didn't know any better. I didn't know my rights. I couldn't read. I couldn't understand. I couldn't watch my TV shows because I couldn't follow the storyline of a television show. I could watch maybe a little bit of a commercial. And by the time, oh, and also I realized that I couldn't get PERS through my job because I'd only worked it for 4 years and you needed 5 years. So they went back to my Social Security. Now that took 2 years because about 2.5, almost 3 years. So I couldn't get any medical help because my job didn't cover it, and it takes 2 years to get, it took 2 years to get the Social Security, so I kind of sat for a long time. And I was lucky enough to have a couple of doctors, neurologists, neurosurgeons, and one speech therapist who, after they saw me after about a year and a half, after I'd already lost everything, and my son and I were staying at different family members' homes, the one speech therapist had donated her time and helped me for months and months and months to be able to speak like I'm speaking to you now. I still don't always say the right thing, and the words don't always come out right, so my videos can be a little jumbly because I do have traumatic brain injury. I'd also shattered parts of my back, which they didn't find out for way later because I wasn't able to think about that to tell anybody. I couldn't tell a doctor about that. My neck really hurt, stuff like that. But my life was gone. I was a piano performance major in college. Couldn't play piano anymore. I couldn't move my fingers like that. I couldn't even hold a spoon. I'm doing much better now. I did have, before my service dog, I had a seizure. And I hit my head really hard, and I had another traumatic brain injury. And that one wiped out my facial recognition, my speech again. And that one happened in 2011. Uh, but I don't see faces the way a person does. I can't recognize actors on a television set. I recognize my son now and my sister and my mom by their voice and their location. I know where people are supposed to be. It's hard when I'm out and about because I know what doctor I'm seeing, but I don't know their faces. I won't recognize a friend on the street. Um, People have told me I'm a shell of who I was before. And as cruel as it was to say that to me, they were right. I fought like hell for about 8 years to try to get that person who I was before back. Until I had to let that go and realize and accept the person who I am now. I'm very lucky now that in 2021, and because of President Obama, he enacted, he really put a lot of awareness to traumatic brain injury and the devastation that it causes in our soldiers and people who get it. And when you lose your home, you lose your furniture. I lost my Christmas decorations, my car, my job. In 2021, I still have no stability. But I got to know my son again. I may not have the memories of him being a baby and him growing up. And let me tell you, he suffered terribly because there was no help for people like me. Billy Hinn fed me. He was only 6 and he spoon fed me. My mom would help, but she had to work. So he got left alone with me a lot and I couldn't move. I just sat and stared, I guess. So Billy went through hell. As far as the accident settlement goes, I got $25,000 because she had a $100,000 pot, and the people, I got a bad attorney. Unfortunately, he did end up losing his license, but I didn't know people pick things for me, trying to help me, and they did. But who would have known that he would have been like that? He didn't care, but he had let all them file first, so the only thing left for my son and me together was $25,000. I used that $25,000 to buy a car, and once I got my service dog, and I used it to put my son through St. Vincent St. Mary High School. And that was it. And I still live, I mean, it wasn't enough to, at the time, it wasn't enough to buy a home, but I could put my son through a good high school, and I did. So he could have some stability in his life. With my service dog, I do drive. I've been accused of being an unethical human being because my service dog has hemorrhagic gastroenteritis, and he works for me. Those attacks only come on about every 3 years. He's on daily medication that keep it under control, and he doesn't work when he has an attack. And I don't allow him to work until he's cleared by his vet to work. I would never do that. He's one of the greatest gifts I've ever had in my life, because being able to drive and go to the grocery store gave me some freedom after about 18 years of nothing, and walking and hoping and not to get lost. Because I don't have spatial awareness. I get lost while driving. My son was great for that before maps. He knew everything. But now I have maps. And I have Scotty. So I can drive. And that's my story. We lost, I get $780 a month because they went on my waitress, but what I made before Metro. But what I went through, nobody should have to go through. ever. And I swore I couldn't handle or survive it twice, but I did. The second one really took me back for it. It took me back for a good 5 years. Um, I was fortunate then that I was able to get speech therapy and it was covered, and I had group therapy, and I have an epilepsy group of girlfriends that I have, and I also have quite a few girlfriends who have service dogs, so I have that group. But my life will never be what it was before, and I've accepted that. I'm My eyes don't look right because they're not right. Still don't see correctly. Traumatic brain injury affects your life on so many levels. When I finally got my emotions back to where I could cry, I cried so much. I was so happy. But then they didn't come back right. If I was happy, I would cry. If I was sad, I'd laugh. That took a long time. So, traumatic brain injury is a very hard place to be. And it's also very hard on your caregiver, on the caregivers. If it wasn't for my sister and my son and my mother, I wouldn't be here. Some people told me I shouldn't be here. That I'm a waste of humanity because just a drain on resources. I shouldn't have lived through the accident. I just wouldn't want to survive it again. I don't think they know how hard I fought to try to go back to work and to be me again, but traumatic brain injury is really a tough thing to live with every day, and people don't understand. They're in too much of a hurry, or they ask me something and then I get skipped over because I took too long, and I get it, but my son and my sister don't do that to me. My dog doesn't do that to me. Thank God he's more patient than anybody I know. But right now I'm staying with my mom. I don't know where I'm going to be tomorrow. I hope I'm here. But that's life on disability. Waiting for housing. But what are the memories of your children worth to you? To me, they were worth everything. I love my son more than anything. I love my dog, my sister, and my dog. That's a story for another day, but try to be kind to people with disabilities. Because just being in that room is a struggle with people. Trying how to monitor my emotions and how to talk to people and how to try to look like I'm looking them in the eye, even though I don't really see them. So, thank you. And that's what traumatic brain injury is like.